October 14th, 1066. A ridge near the town of Hastings becomes soaked in blood. But this wasn't just a clash of swords and shields. It was the day a kingdom fell, a new age began, and the very nature of warfare evolved. Today we journey into the depths of the Battle of Hastings, a confrontation etched into the fabric of English history. But this battle wasn't just about two rival claimants to a throne. It was a collision of cultures, tactics, and ideologies. One army rooted in anglo-saxon tradition, the other wielding the cutting-edge tools of continental warfare. And amidst this chaos, a web of oaths, betrayals, and divine symbols added layers of mystery to the bloodshed. Was Harold Godwinson truly struck by an arrow in the eye? Did William the Conqueror manipulate the Pope to justify invasion? And was the infamous retreat a brilliant tactic or pure chance? In this video, we unravel the events leading up to the battle, explore the evolving art of war in the medieval period, and uncover the disturbing mysteries that still haunt the field of Hastings. Every great battle is shaped not just by armies, but by the ground they fight upon, and the Battle of Hastings was no exception. The site was Senlac Hill, just northwest of Hastings in Sussex, a long ridge overlooking the surrounding countryside, a natural stronghold. King Harold Godwinson arrived first and seized the high ground. His Anglo-Saxon army formed a solid line along the crest of the hill, using terrain to his advantage. From this elevated position, his shield wall would be nearly impenetrable. In medieval warfare, such a defensive stance was a huge advantage, especially against cavalry. But why here? Why now? The answer lies in urgency. Harold had just marched over 200 miles south after defeating an invasion from the north, a brutal battle against the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada at Stamford Bridge. His army was tired, depleted, and still recovering. He couldn't allow William to raid the countryside unchecked. Duke William, meanwhile, had landed with his Norman army at Pevensey Bay weeks earlier. He needed to force a decisive battle to legitimize his claim, and so the two forces collided at this seemingly random hill. But Senlac would become more than a battlefield. It would become a graveyard of an era, and the choice of ground set the tone for the entire confrontation: strategic, desperate, and devastating. The battlefield was chosen in days, but the seeds of war were sown years earlier. When Edward the Confessor died without an heir in January 1066, England was plunged into a succession crisis. Three men claimed the throne, but it was Harold Godwinson, the powerful Earl of Wessex, who seized the crown and was crowned king. However, across the Channel, Duke William of Normandy believed the throne was his by right. He claimed that Edward had promised him the kingship years earlier, and that Harold had sworn an oath on sacred relics to support William's claim. But Harold denied it. Was William lying to justify an invasion, or had Harold truly betrayed him? The most chilling detail: William supposedly made Harold swear the oath over holy relics hidden beneath a cloth. When the relics were revealed afterward, it symbolized that Harold's oath had been made under divine witness. Breaking it wasn't just treason, it was sacrilege. To make matters worse, William sought and gained the support of Pope Alexander II, who sent him a papal banner, giving the invasion the aura of a holy war.
Ambition, betrayal, necessity?
The Pope's involvement turned William's campaign from a personal vendetta into a divinely sanctioned mission. But even today, historians debate whether the relics existed at all. Was this divine mandate real, or the most brilliant propaganda stunt in medieval history? What is clear is this: oaths mattered in the 11th century. They were more than promises, they were sacred bonds, and breaking one could mean divine retribution. Thus, the Battle of Hastings was not simply a military conflict. It was seen by many as a judgment by God, a trial by combat to determine the rightful ruler. And as we now know, divine favor was something both sides desperately wanted and ruthlessly manipulated. When we imagine medieval battles, we often think of chaos. But at Hastings, two highly organised forces met, each representing vastly different military traditions. Let's start with the English. King Harold's army was a mix of housecarls and the Fyrd. The housecarls were professional soldiers, bodyguards armed with massive Danish axes and trained to fight in disciplined formation. The Fyrd were local militia, farmers and townsmen summoned by duty, less trained but numerous. Their tactic? The shield wall. Warriors locked shields shoulder to shoulder, creating a nearly impenetrable line. It was brutal, efficient, and ideal for defence, especially on high ground. William's Norman army was different. It included not only Normans, but also Bretons, Flemings, and Frenchmen. It was a cosmopolitan force, boasting archers, infantry, and cavalry. Most significant were the knights on horseback. These were the elite, trained from childhood, wielding lances and swords, protected by chainmail. Cavalry was still a developing weapon in 1066. In England, battles were often decided by infantry, but William brought continental warfare to Britain. His knights could charge, retreat, and charge again, breaking enemy lines with psychological pressure and brute force. Even more revolutionary was William's use of combined arms tactics. Archers would fire in waves to soften targets, infantry would clash to pin the enemy, then cavalry would strike where the line faltered. This three-pronged system was rare in Anglo-Saxon warfare and became a hallmark of Norman dominance. The armies also contrasted in morale. Harold's men fought for their homeland. William's men fought for land, glory, and divine justice. And with the papal banner flying above them, they believed God was on their side. Two armies, two cultures, two visions of war. The stage was set for one of the most important and bloodiest battles of the medieval world. At dawn on October 14th, 1066, the battle began. Harold's men held the high ground, shields locked, waiting. William's forces marched uphill in organised ranks. Archers launched arrows to disrupt the wall, but they did little. Infantry charged and were beaten back. Cavalry followed, but the shield wall held firm. For hours the English line stood unbroken. The hill, the wall, the discipline, it all worked. William's army began to falter, morale dropped. Then came a rumour that changed everything. The Duke is dead. In panic, Norman troops began to retreat, but William, very much alive, rode through the chaos, lifted his helmet, and showed his face to rally the men. It worked. And then, the turning point. During one chaotic phase, part of the Norman cavalry feigned retreat. It looked like another rout. The English took the bait. They broke ranks and chased the Normans down the hill. That's when the cavalry turned and attacked, cutting down the scattered English soldiers. Historians debate, was this a planned manoeuvre or a lucky accident? Either way, it was devastatingly effective. William repeated the trick later, breaking more of the shield wall. By afternoon, the English formation had thinned, gaps emerged. William pushed forward, and then came the most debated moment of all, Harold's death. The Bayeux tapestry shows a figure with an arrow in his eye, a gruesome symbolic image, but other accounts say he was hacked to pieces by Norman knights. Was it both? First the arrow, then the blade? Some say the arrow was metaphor, a divine punishment for oath-breaking. Others believe it was historical fact. And then there are the legends, that Harold didn't die at all, but lived out his life as a hermit in exile. Whatever the truth, Harold's death shattered English resistance. As the sun set, William stood victorious, but at what cost? The Norman victory at Hastings was more than a political change. It was a military and cultural transformation. In the aftermath, William moved quickly to secure control. He built castles, starting with Motte and Bailey designs, to dominate local populations. These were both military structures and symbols of conquest. Feudalism took root. Land was redistributed to Norman lords. English elites were displaced. A new ruling class emerged. But the biggest shift? The evolution of medieval warfare. Hastings proved the effectiveness of combined arms and heavy cavalry. The Norman model became the standard across Europe. The idea of the mounted knight as the elite warrior figure was cemented. Warfare also became more psychological. William had used fear, deception, and divine authority to win. The manipulation of religious symbols like the papal banner showed how belief could be weaponized. Even written memory was conquered. The Bayeux Tapestry told a version of the battle that favored the Normans, a masterpiece of medieval spin. The battle ended Anglo-Saxon England and ushered in centuries of Norman rule. But the myths, the mysteries, and the power of Hastings continue to echo to this day.